Welcome back to the deep dive. We are opening up a stack of documents today that really gets at a specific, almost gnawing kind of anxiety. I think if you lead a team in field service, I'm talking fire safety, HVAC, security, you know this feeling
Mm.
intimately. It's that feeling you get when you're sitting in a software demo.
Ah, yes. The shiny object meeting.
Exactly. You know the one. The salesperson is up there clicking through these like perfect, beautiful screens. They're using all the right words. Optimization, seamless workflows, digital transformation.
Mhm.
And you're just sitting there nodding along, maybe taking a few notes, but inside you are absolutely screaming.
Because you know what the ground truth is. You know
Yeah.
the reality.
Right, you're thinking, this looks great, but will this break the messy, chaotic, barely holding it together system that is currently keeping my business alive?
Mm.
It's that fear that the cure is going to be worse than the disease.
It's the silent hesitation. That's the elephant in the room in almost every one of these meetings. And looking at the source material we have today, Chapter 4 of the NexiServe Guide, the first thing it does, which I found so refreshing, is it just validates that fear.
It doesn't just dismiss it, call you resistant to change.
Not at all.
Yeah.
It argues that your hesitation, it isn't because you're a Luddite or, stuck in the past. It suggests that this hesitation is actually a scar. It's a scar from experience.
Wow, that's a visceral way to put it. A scar.
Well, just think about who we're talking to. Most leaders in these industries have lived through at least one failed rollout. They've bought a solution that promised the world, but when they actually tried to deploy it, it didn't optimize a thing. It actually increased the workload.
It added friction.
Exactly. It confused the team, it messed with service delivery, and suddenly everyone's working late just to feed data into a system that was supposed to save them time. And in these industries, in regulated fields, that is not just an annoyance.
Right, and that's such a key point we have to make. If I run a creative agency and we try a new project tool and it glitches, maybe a campaign launches a day late. It's annoying, but, nobody gets hurt.
Correct. But if you run a fire protection company and your new software makes a tech miss a compliance check on a sprinkler pump, that's operational risk. That is real legal liability. That is life safety. The stakes are completely different.
So, okay, the mission for this deep dive then, it isn't really about features or buttons. We're unpacking the psychology of change in these high-stakes environments. We're asking, how do you integrate a new system into a business without causing a complete operational meltdown?
That's the question.
Yeah.
And these documents suggest that to answer it, you have to first understand why the business, the body, rejects these things in the first place. You have to look at the environment.
Which brings us to this concept the text calls the uncontrolled environment. I found this fascinating. It explains why so much software, maybe software designed in, a nice, quiet office, just fails in the real world.
It's the total disconnect between the designer's world and the user's world. Let's contrast it. In an office, a controlled environment, if you roll out new HR software and it's a bit clunky, what happens?
People grumble, they sigh, maybe they take an extra 10 minutes to figure it out, or they walk over to IT.
Exactly. They have the luxury of just pausing. They have good Wi-Fi. They have air conditioning. In field service, work cannot pause. You have techs on rooftops, in basements, in the pouring rain. They're driving between jobs and traffic.
And those compliance deadlines, they don't wait because you're configuring a new app.
Precisely. And the customer, the one standing there with a broken furnace, they do not tolerate service degradation just because your new iPad app is buffering.
So you're basically trying to change the engine of the car while the car is flying down the highway at 70 miles an hour.
That's the perfect analogy.
Oh.
And the source here argues that so many systems fail because they fall into what it calls the ideal conditions trap.
I love that term. So break that down for us. What does the ideal conditions trap actually look like?
It looks like software that assumes a perfectly linear, uninterrupted workflow. It assumes the tech shows up, opens the app, has a perfect signal, has the mental space to fill out 5 forms with 100% accuracy, and then closes the job.
Which sounds great in a PowerPoint presentation.
It sounds perfect, but the reality is the tech arrives, the gate code is wrong, it's raining, the screen's wet, the signal is spotty, and the client is yelling at them about something from a previous invoice. When a system demands perfection in that messy situation, the human has to compensate.
They have to bridge that gap themselves.
They have to work harder just to feed the machine. They have to remember all the data until they get back to the van. It just increases pressure. And if your new software increases pressure on a team that is already maxed out, they will reject it. They will find workarounds, or they'll just quit.
So, okay, this leads us to the absolute core of the NexiServe philosophy here. If they get that reality is messy, how is their approach any different? Because my first question reading this was, if it doesn't replace my scheduling tool, if it doesn't replace my accounting, where does it even fit?
And this is the foundational design principle. NexiServe is built to sit alongside your existing tools. It is not a rip and replace scenario.
Which I'm sure is a relief to hear, but it also sounds a bit, I don't know, crowded. If I already have Zero and a scheduling tool, and my email inbox is chaos, isn't adding another tool just more noise?
It would be. It absolutely would be if we were trying to do the same job as those tools. But the source material uses this really interesting phrase. It says NexiServe manages the space between tasks.
The space between tasks. Okay, that sounds a little abstract. Can you give me a concrete example of what that means?
Sure. Think about a standard workflow. Security company. You have a scheduling tool. Maybe it's just a calendar. That tool handles the appointment task. Then the guard goes to the site, does the patrol. That's the execution task.
Yeah.
Then someone in the office sends a bill. That's the invoicing task.
Right, and we have separate tools for all of those. We have these little islands of functionality.
Exactly. Islands, but where do things go wrong?
Usually in the handoff. The boat ride between the islands. The scheduler forgot to put the new alarm code in the notes. Or the guard did the patrol but didn't log an incident right, so the invoice goes out wrong.
Precisely. The failure happens in that white space between the software. It's a loss of context. Right now, humans have to bridge that gap. The scheduler has to remember. The guard has to remember to call the office. NexiServe lives in that gap. It's the structural layer that connects the islands.
So it's not trying to be a better calendar, it's trying to be the connective tissue.
Yes, it carries the responsibility, the context, across those gaps so the human doesn't have to hold it all in their head. It makes sure the context from the calendar actually lands with the guard and the context from the guard lands in the invoice.
Okay, that makes sense. It's the glue. But let's talk about the people again, because even if the software is just connective tissue, you still have to get people to use it, and that usually means training day.
The dreaded training day.
You know what I'm talking about. Stale donuts, a 50-slide PowerPoint, and a manager saying, okay, everyone, starting Monday, here are the 30 new clicks you have to make. And you can just see the soul leaving the technicians' bodies.
And they dread it for a very real physiological reason. Cognitive load. The source is actually surprisingly empathetic here. It points out that in high-pressure environments, just adding new rules triggers resistance, not because people are stubborn.
But because their brain is just full.
They are maxed out. There's a concept called cognitive tunneling. When you're under stress fixing a live wire, dealing with an angry client, your brain narrows its focus. You literally do not have the mental bandwidth to learn some complex new software dance routine.
So if you try to force a behavioral change, click these 10 buttons in that high-stress moment, the brain just says, nope. It bounces off.
Exactly. So NexiServe's whole integration strategy is based on structural responsibility instead of behavioral responsibility.
Unpack that. That sounds a little like jargon, but I feel like it's really important.
It's actually pretty simple, but it flips the whole script. Behavioral responsibility says, to get value, you, the human, must change. You must input more data. You must work for the software.
Which is what most software feels like.
Yes. Structural responsibility says, the system will provide value to you before it asks you to change.
Give me a before and after on that.
Okay. Behavioral approach. Tech arrives at a fire pump. The app is blank. They have to type in the serial number, the model, the last service date, all before they can even see the checklist. High friction.
And high annoyance. I'd probably just type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get past the screen.
Exactly, which ruins your data.
Yeah.
Now, the structural approach. The tech arrives. The system knows who they are, where they are. It automatically surfaces the asset history. Here's the pump. Here's the last time it was fixed. Here's the manual. Here's the access code. It gives them context structurally. It doesn't demand anything yet.
I see. It's being helpful before it asks for compliance. It gives before it takes.
Precisely. And the really interesting result mentioned in the guide is that better habits do emerge over time, but they emerge as a byproduct, not prerequisite. Because the pressure has been lowered, because the tech isn't scrambling for info, they actually have the mental space to be more precise with their reporting later.
It's evolution, not just enforced discipline.
That's a great line. It's about removing the friction that causes the bad behavior, instead of just punishing the behavior.
Okay, I am buying into the philosophy. It sounds humane. but I want to play devil's advocate on the execution. You can't just flip a switch and say, here's some context, guys, enjoy. There has to be a process.
Oh, absolutely. The source details a concept it calls gradual introduction as a safety mechanism. And the answer to the question, do we have to turn it on for everyone all at once, is a definitive no.
Which I imagine is a huge relief for anyone listening who manages a big team. The idea of a big bang rollout is just terrifying.
And it's unnecessary. The strategy is to target the areas of highest anxiety first. You don't start where things are easy. You start where the pain is acute.
Wait, isn't that counterintuitive? Usually with new tech, you want a quick win. You pick the easiest workflow to prove it works. You're saying go for the hardest stuff first.
Not the hardest, technically.
Yeah.
The hardest emotionally. You want to solve the thing that wakes the owner up at 3 a.m. The source actually breaks this down by industry, which I thought was really helpful.
Okay, let's run through those. What about fire protection?
In fire protection, the anxiety is the audit. It's the fear that a tech checked a box but didn't actually check the device, and now the building is non-compliant. So you start NexiServe there. You focus only on the inspection workflow to make the audit trails bulletproof.
You prove the system protects the actual license of the business.
Exactly. You're not worried about invoicing or timesheets, just compliance, just safety.
Okay. What about for a security company?
The pain is incident traceability. The alarm went off. Did we respond? The client says a gate was left open. Was that us?
Mm-hmm.
So you focus the rollout on response accountability. Give the guards a tool that proves where they were and what they did, so they are protected.
That is a huge one. Protecting the employee. That sells software way better than efficiency.
100%. If you tell a guard, this proves you did your job so you can't be blamed, they'll use it.
How about HVAC?
For HVAC, it's often repeat callouts. Fixing the same AC unit 3 times because the first 2 techs didn't have the history. You target those unresolved faults. You use NexiServe just to surface that history.
And for facilities management?
SLA compliance. Service level agreements. We are contracted to clean 50 restrooms by 9:00 a.m. Are we doing it? You start there.
So the whole logic is fix the scariest problem first.
Yes, because by fixing the scariest part, you prove your value immediately. You lower the defenses of the whole team. They see this tool isn't here to annoy them. It's here to take the bullet for them on the hard stuff.
And once that trust is there, I imagine rolling out the boring stuff like timesheets is way easier.
So much easier. You've already won the argument. You've proven the tool's an ally.
This leads perfectly into the next big fear the source talks about. And this one is sensitive. It's the fear of the veteran technician, the person who's been doing this for 20 years. They see a system that carries responsibility and they think, is this thing trying to replace me? Is it trying to override my judgment?
This is the replacement fear. And in the age of AI, it's very real. But the source makes a critical distinction that I think every leader needs to hear. NexiServe removes uncertainty, not decision-making.
Walk me through that, because to a cynical employee, that might sound like the same thing.
Okay, let's go back to our HVAC tech on the roof. He's standing in front of a chiller. It's making a grinding noise. The decision on how to fix that relies on his training, his experience, his intuition. NexiServe doesn't touch that. It doesn't tell him how to turn the wrench.
Okay, so the craft, the skill stays with the human.
Exactly. But the uncertainty around that decision, when was this last serviced? Who was here last? Is this part under warranty? Do we have a replacement in the van across town?
The administrative fog?
The fog. That is what NexiServe handles. It clears the fog so the technician can actually do the skilled work.
So it protects their professional identity. It makes sure a good tech isn't blamed for a failure that was actually caused by bad information.
Yes. The source uses an analogy that I think really lands. It's not an AI robot taking your job. It's a structural safety net ensuring your hard work actually counts.
I love that. It's not replacing the player. It's fixing the field so the player doesn't trip in a hole.
That's a great way to put it. It's about respect for the trade.
So we've covered the fear, the design, the rollout, the human element. What does success actually feel like? Because I think the tech industry has conditioned us to expect digital transformation to be this big, loud fireworks moment.
Right. Go live day. There's cakes, there's balloons, and there's panic in the hallways. People running around with clipboards.
Exactly. But according to this source, a successful NexiServe integration should feel kind of boring.
Boring is fantastic. The document is very clear on this. The true indicator of success is that the rollout is uneventful.
Uneventful. You don't usually see that in marketing copy.
No, you don't. But think about what we're aiming for. Safety. Stability. There shouldn't be a dramatic surge in alerts. There shouldn't be a crisis meeting. If you've done the integration right, the result is quiet.
So if it's quiet, it's working.
The metrics of calm, that's what you're looking for.
What are those metrics? How do you even measure calm?
You look for the absence of friction. You see fewer follow-up calls from the office to the field asking, "Where are you?" or "Did you finish?" Fewer escalations where a manager has to drop everything to save a client relationship. Fewer nasty surprises in the billing cycle.
There was a phrase in the source that really stuck with me. The organization feels calmer, not faster.
It's profound, isn't it? Calmer, not faster. We are so obsessed with speed optimizing routes, squeezing in one more job. But this document argues the real value is in removing the structural pressure.
And the irony is, when you remove the pressure, speed often just comes naturally anyway.
Yeah, it does. Because people aren't double-checking everything or waiting on hold or driving back to the shop for a part they forgot. It's speed without the burnout.
So it feels like we're moving from a state of constant vigilance, always looking for the next mistake, to a state of stability.
That is the goal. Structural stability.
Yeah.
A business that isn't just white-knuckling its way through every day.
So let's wrap this up. We started this deep dive talking about that fear of breaking the business with a new system.
And we've seen that the answer isn't to pretend that fear is irrational. It's to find a system that's actually designed for that reality. NexiServe integrates safely because it respects the uncontrolled environment. It sits alongside your tools, manages the gaps, and it introduces itself gradually.
It's a protective layer, not a disruptor. The safety net, not the replacement.
Precisely. And once you have that layer in place, once the business isn't rejecting it, you can start to do some really interesting things.
And that's where we're headed next, right?
Yes. The source material teases Chapter 5, which is all about what happens after stability. Now that we know the system isn't going to break us, how do we start to believe the data it's producing?
Trust.
Trust. How do we move from "I think this is happening" to "I know this is happening"? Chapter 5 is all about how that trust builds over time through visibility. It's about replacing that constant, exhausting vigilance with structural trust.
I really like that, structural trust. It's not just trusting that Dave won't make a mistake. It's trusting that the system won't let Dave's mistake become a catastrophe.
Exactly. And that is a much more relaxing way to run a business.
Well, on that note, I want to leave you, the listener, with the final thought to mull over. We often wear our stress like a badge of honor in this industry. If you're not frantic, you're not working hard enough. But what if the ultimate sign of a high-performing business isn't how fast you can put out fires, but how few fires you have to fight in the first place? What if boring is actually the highest form of success?
A provocative thought.
Think about it. We'll see you in the next deep dive for Chapter 5. Thanks for listening.